Hello, hello. I'm Avalon, and this is Voice Notes from the Chrysalis, my 21 episode podcast where I share all the golden nuggets I've discovered through being deeply transformed over the past 5 years in celebration of the launch of my digital course, Discover Yourself. So, thank you so much for being here. And today we are talking about going to therapy. And just I mean, if you want to skip to the end, go to therapy. That's my advice. Go to therapy and do not settle for a therapist, if that makes sense. If you do not feel like that is the right therapist for you, or even if that is not the right therapist for you right now, or not the right therapist for you right now for the things that you want to work on. I first went to therapy because I thought I was going crazy. I'm not exaggerating. I actually was concerned that I had psychosis and I was scared about it. And I asked one of my close friends, one of my roommates at the time, and because they had started going to therapy and asked, they were saying great things about the therapist, and I asked if they'd be okay with me seeing the same therapist, and they're like, yeah, sure, go for it, and started seeing her. And honestly, thank God, because I did not have psychosis. I turned out I actually had, I was just traumatized. I thought I had an anxiety, sorry, I didn't think I had a anxiety disorder. The first therapist thought I had an anxiety disorder. And that surprised me because I didn't consider myself to be an anxious person. Now having seen a second therapist and really deconstructing the anxiety, I was like, oh, I was traumatized and getting triggered, and it was showing up. And I was getting triggered so much that it was showing up as generalized anxiety. Um, but yeah, I went to therapy literally because I thought I was going crazy, and was in a deeply triggering environment that I honestly don't want to talk about here. To be honest, not going to talk about it. But that experience was so necessary. I saw that therapist until I moved to Durham. And then she didn't, this is before the pandemic, so their telehealth wasn't really a thing. So parted ways, and then a lot of life happened. And I'm pretty sure I started seeing my second therapist. Um, during the pandemic in summer of 2020, I'm pretty sure. And it was time a lot had happened, and God, that second therapist was absolutely the one for me. And the first therapist was the person I needed in that kind of more urgent situation, and also before, again, like telehealth and remote therapy was more normalized. And that was the best therapist that I knew of in the local area that I was in, that my friend had recommended. I didn't, if you haven't gone to therapy, you don't know how to find a therapist. Okay, so if you want to find a therapist, the way I do it is this is when I have health insurance, I guess, to specify. I'm actually on a journey now to figure out health insurance as a freelancer. So this is a different conversation. But in the past, I have gone to psychologytoday.com. I'm pretty sure I'm look in the show notes. I will confirm if that is correct. Now I'm questioning myself. But psychologytoday.com, and they have a provider, like a therapist finder and tool, and you can put in the exact insurance you have, or if you don't have insurance, you can put in your physical location, or if you want remote sessions, you can filter by gender, type of therapist. I love a social worker. I love a social worker. That is my preferred uh training for a therapist. Um, Yeah, and just go on there and use all the filters. And most, I think all of the therapists I've ever interacted with have like a no cost kind of like consultation, like talk and meet and get to know them before you fully commit. And I highly encourage you to kind of treat this a little bit like a job interview and a little bit like a date. You bring do some introspection about what is important to you in a therapist. For me personally, the one thing that I have to have in common is I have to have a therapist who believes in a higher power. I can't I don't want to constantly be explaining my worldview and just defaulting to someone who also believes in a higher power. Might not be the same one, might be religious, might not be religious, whatever. But like as long as we have that in common, I also prefer a female therapist. And again, a licensed social worker. But beyond that, I'm pretty open. Also really love, LGBTQIA plus friendly, trauma informed, like ACEs trained, all of that is really nice. But really, it's like a personal disposition and someone who can meet me where I am. Also love to see like somatic training in there. That second therapist had like some somatic training, and that unlocked a lot, a lot for me. Things that I would have never gotten to with that first therapist. First therapist was trained in EFT, which is like a somatic practice, but like I just like really connected with and it's literally still like can hear the process that that second therapist would take me through whenever something activating was happening. I can literally take myself through that same process now. It is so powerful. Therapy is so important. And I just really encourage you not to settle for someone who is convenient, someone who you think you should like or connect with, but you don't actually. Like having that trust, oh, is like so critical. Like you have to feel safe going into your deepest, darkest places with this person. And that requires a huge amount of trust. So don't settle. There are so many therapists out there. I'm sure we need more. I'm sure there's a huge demand for therapy these days. So, but at the same time, I think it can actually be detrimental to us if we force ourselves to be with a therapist that is not right for us. I think it can actually make some things worse. So I would highly encourage therapy, all different kinds of therapy. I've only tried I like traditional like talk therapy, I guess, is what you would call it. But there are other types as well that are extremely powerful that I have friends who are doing EDMR and wow. I might do that someday. I still have more to heal. I did graduate from therapy a year ago. I have more. I have more to go back to. But for what I was actively working through with her and where I was in life, it became really apparent that it wasn't necessary for me to continue those sessions. I do now have more topics that I want to go back and dig into in therapy. I'm actually like one of my homework assignments for myself right now is to do research on other therapists. I love the second therapist and I would love to see her again. I just don't know if she's gonna ta be compatible with my like insurance situation. So we're gonna figure that out. But I highly recommend therapy. I honestly don't care who you are. I like feel like the world that we're in is traumatizing right now. We are living in a world that's not made for us to thrive. And then you add on things that happen in childhood, things that happen in our formative years, and things that happen in relationships, things that we internalize, like all of that. Like, I just think that therapy can be really, really helpful if you're willing to show up and be present and do the work yourself. That is key. You can't just go to the appointments and expect to just osmosis absorb just by like showing up to the appointment. Like you have to show up and do the work, and usually outside of the sessions as well. So I hope that little bit of guidance helps. I hope that normalizes going to therapy, because it should be, it's normal to me. It's normal to me now. It's normal amongst all of the people that I'm close with. So would highly recommend. Please go get some therapy if you want. And not at all related to therapy. If you want to discover more about yourself, I would highly recommend my Discover Yourself course to identify your values, your strengths, weaknesses, and how you feel about your life overall. And maybe in that overall life assessment, the wheel of life is the exercise. Maybe you realize that you need to go to therapy because that exercise can make it really clear where the areas in your life where you are very satisfied and where you are very unsatisfied or somewhere in between. And it's just a good reality check, because we can float on by our lives and not realize that we're really not okay. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too easy to just assume a status quo when it doesn't have to be that way. So, highly recommend my digital course alongside a journey into therapy. That course launches for the early birds, which you can sign up for free and get a little discount. The early birds get it on December 21st, and the public gets it on December 28th. And I am so excited for you to check it out. And thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.